Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us today, everybody. I'm Carolyn McLeod, your moderator for the Getting Started with Bartender for Enterprises. Thank you for joining us. Lee, go ahead and flip. There we go. We got our presenters today, Lee Stevens, Senior Sales Engineer. We're lucky to have him, as well as Roberto Posada, Sales Engineer, both out of the Americas. I wanted to also let you know that today's session is being recorded. So after this event, I will definitely send you a link to the recording as well as the slide deck. I've uploaded some documents for you to download if you would like that may help. Leo will talk about them today. There's a couple other presentations, other webinars that he may reference as well, and if so, I'll include those in the thank you note. And then we will, at the end, hold a hearty Q&A session, so use the dashboard to type in your questions. And if we, for some reason, don't get to them during the session, we will follow up with you after the event. So take advantage of these guys. We have them for an hour here. Let's get our questions answered and learn more about bartender automation and enterprise editions, and specifically how to do a web services integration today. Lee, go ahead, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. So as Carolyn said, I'm Lee Stevens. I'm a senior sales engineer with Seagull Scientific, makers of BarTender, located here in America. Specifically, Roberto and I are in the Puget Sound region near our headquarters. So just really quick, we're going to talk a bit about BarTender, and then we're going to dive as soon as possible into the actual web services integration and showing you also some of the advanced capabilities you have with BarTender Designer on doing intelligent templates. So first though, just a little bit, why BarTender? Well, the fact is that if you can build a PowerPoint, you can use BarTender to build labels. It's that easy. And if you are not sure about that, definitely check out the webinar that Roberto hosted yesterday on getting started with the labels. He shows how in 20 minutes you can build an address label and have it look completely professional. Matter of fact, frankly, his labels look better than most of the labels I get coming in on the junk mail, you know, that we all seem to now have almost exclusively coming in. So BarTender, we have been around for a long time. We actually more than 35 years. We are the leaders in this type of printing. It's barcodes, it's RFID, it's smart cards, it's integrating with barcode scanners, it's integrating with scales, it's being able to produce unique, highly important documents, be they a barcode, be they some other kind of unique documentation that is identifiable and traceable. And for that reason, we are used in all industries. Any place where accurate identification of information and or products is essential, you're going to find BarTender. Okay, and so kind of talked about this already. Yeah, we do barcodes and more. RFID tags, which is one of the coming things, as well as the plastic tags. So in addition to labeling your products going out, you can also use BarTender to create your own security ID badges and so on. BarTender is not a single product. BarTender is a platform, an ecosystem. We give you a workbench and a whole bunch of tools, and you get to build with it what you need to fit your operations. So A little bit about Seagull. As I said, BarTender's been around for more than 35 years. Seagull even longer. We originally did barcode scanners. And then we developed BarTender because customers were saying, hey, love your barcode scanner, but I'm having problems making the barcode. Later on, we realized that, you know what? It's the software that is really what's important here. We are global, headquarters here in Bellevue, Washington, where I am, but also centers in Madrid, Taipei, and Tokyo. So as the sun never sets on Seagull Scientific and BarTender. We are always up and going somewhere in the world. We have four main additions, just really quick. Starter, which is our simplest one, and we'll let you get going with BarTender if you're a little bit unsure. It'll connect to Excel. It's very gives you very basic capabilities. And then we move on up the levels with professional, automation, and enterprise. What I'm going to be showing you today is going to be primarily in the professional and automation edition, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the enterprise things that are also available. So as I said, to begin with, Starter allows you to get going really quick, but professional is where if you're producing more than just say 5 labels, or you're printing more than say 100 copies, you really want to start looking at professional. It provides you with intelligent templates. We're going to go into that a bit more, as well as data entry forms, which you will definitely see and I think really like. And it's also going to give you the support for RFID, for smart cards, etc. You can go a long way with professional. Automation is what we're going to be talking a lot about today, and that's integration. That is the ability for BarTender to take an outside signal or trigger and use it to print the labels and documents that you want, where you want them, when you want them. At the enterprise level, this is when you're doing more than say 25 new labels a year, and the management and security of your labels are becoming a major concern for you. If you are spending any time trying to figure out who has what label template and where, you need enterprise, because that's what enterprise helps you do. Okay, so as I said, this demo is focused mainly on Automation Edition, which automates your label printing. It accepts the outside signals, and those can come from a wide range of things. You see here on the sample screen, that is actually a shot that from our integration builder. We can take it from what we call a file drop. BarTender's just monitoring a particular folder, and then a file appears. We can do it from a web service call, which is what we'll do today. Something changes in a database. Heck, we'll take it from an email. And of course, serial ports for connecting scales and barcode readers, etc. If your system has some way of signaling to the outside world, we can figure out a way of getting BarTender to hear it and act on it. The Enterprise Edition, a little bit more about that. This is when you're needing to control printing across your entire company. You also want to start doing some web printing, meaning people go to use a browser and they go to your site and they can print their labels at their own locations, for example. Or you can use that internally because you have people wandering around with Android tablets and they need to be able to schedule a print job out there on the floor. This is also where you get into our redundancy features. So if you have operations that you have failover practices on, high availability clusters, things like that, you want to be talking about enterprise. And then if you are in an industry that is regulated or that it is really important that you know who printed, when, how many, where, who helped design the label, who has been gaining access, things like that. Track and trace. That's again enterprise, because you get the centralized database and many more security capabilities and features tying in with Windows as Active Directory. So enterprise is really great. Now, really fast, a little bit about how BarTender works in the automation portion. So automated printing, and I talked about having an external signal. Now, most often those signals are going to come from some kind of data source, or as one of my coworkers likes to put it, the source of truth. It could be an ERP system, it can be a database, it can be a barcode scanner, it can be any number of different things. One of those 8 methods, a trigger comes in to BarTender, and that trigger then causes BarTender to go and say, oh, I need to print this label to this printer, and it needs to look like this. And then it sends that information on to the BarTender print engine, which pushes it out to the printer. But it's actually a little more involved than that, and then, as you probably would guess, and this one kind of breaks it down a little bit more. So here we can see the different kinds of triggers that we can have. And by the way, the trigger can contain the information BarTender is going to use, or it can simply be a signal to BarTender to go somewhere else and look for the information. So you have a lot of flexibility there. The integration is managed by the administration console and built by the integration builder. We're going to see more about integration builder in this demo. And so it pulls in the information, it slices and dices it, it decides which labels and how many, what printer, etc., all based on the information that is fed into it. It can then send out the document to be printed through the print engines, or actually it can do other things. It can write it to a new file, it can send out an email, it can update a database, it can go and trigger another event. It can do all of those. This is all within your control. And what's really cool is you don't have to be a coder or a script person to be able to make this work. Integration Builder, as you're going to see, uses a lot of click here, drop in that, map this, and then logical business type actions that you decide and what you want to do and in what sequence. Web service is what we're going to be working with today. Why web service? Web service is the fastest growing triggers that we come across when people are wanting to automate. And that's because we are moving. If you're not already in a cloud world, you are going to be there soon. So a lot of these systems that BarTender is going to be talking to, they have web service capabilities, and web service is fast and it has built-in response capability, because it's not just enough to tell BarTender, hey, go out and print this label. You want to know that it actually happened. Or if it didn't happen, why? What was going on? And that requires a feedback loop. Now, we can do that feedback with any of these triggers, but web service happens to have that feedback loop built in. And this is why web service is becoming one of the most popular ways of communicating, not just to BarTender, but to almost any other kind of system. Now, enterprise I talked about is about managing your different labels. And here we see the 2 tools that give enterprise that ability. And that's Librarian, which is on the left, and that is a document management system that resides in our BarTender system database and keeps you up to date. You can have one file that you can have multiple revisions on, as you see here. So you have an entire history, but everybody who uses BarTender can have access to it, or you can restrict the access. And because it's in a database, you can actually track the usage of it and who's grabbing it and when. On the right-hand side is the other part of this, and that's our approval workflows. So you can actually design a process through which a label, as it moves through the different stages of its life, yes, labels have life cycles just like anything else, you can control who has access to it during design, who has access to it during a review, how many people are required to approve it before it moves on. And then once it goes into production, you know what you can then keep, again, the access limited. And if somebody moves it out of production, only certain people can do that, and it has to go back to design. So you have complete control over the life of your labels. This is really important because one of the most common problems companies get into with their labels is they end up with too many copies of it. They have a label A and then they need another one and they'll just make a minor copy of it. They'll do an A1 and then somebody grabs A1 and they go off and do an A1B and then somebody takes that and does another one. And so the number of different labels out there starts to spiral out of control and nobody's really sure which one is the master. With Librarian and workflows, you have a positive control loop in being able to keep, manage, and control your labels. Print Portal is another capability also in Enterprise, and that is basically web access. Oftentimes, as I explained earlier, your employees may be working with Android tablets, but they need to print BarTender. Rather than going back to their computer and pulling up BarTender, Print Portal can give them the ability to go to an internal website, find the right label, enter in the information, and then generate a print. Or you can take Print Portal and have it facing outside and be able to support remote printing for suppliers, customers, partners, etc. But you still retain control of the label, you retain control of the information, and you don't have to open up a VPN in order to give them access to it. Print Portal is, along with web services, is the direction everything is moving. And then finally, also at the enterprise level and at the automation level, we have a couple of other applications that help you with that management and tracking. We have our reprint console because guess what? Labels jam, printers run out of ink, somebody trips over a cable and the print run is interrupted. Instead of having to process that entire data flow again, the right person with the right access can go into Reprint Console, select the print job, select only certain labels within that print job, and execute the print again or direct it to another printer. And it's also all logged, so you have a track and trace as to what happened and why. History Explorer is the reprint console, but with even more than just the labels, and can tell you everything that's going on in BarTender. Here you can see a screenshot I took of all of the different kinds of warnings and errors that could be showing. And this is very useful for not just your records, but also for troubleshooting. So we really have you covered on at the enterprise level. Okay, so let's get into the really fun part, the web service integration. Now, this demo is going to consist of really two different things. I'm going to show you a bit more about BarTender Intelligent Templates. Now, this part you can do with Professional. If you're on Starter, you need to upgrade to Professional to be able to do the things I'm going to be showing you. But it's going to be well worth it to you. With intelligent templates, you can generate customized labels quickly and easily. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. After that, we're going to see how we can then take that same level of customization and automate it to where you don't have to have a person doing it. You can just have the information flow in, and between Integration Builder and the intelligent templates, BarTender will generate those customized labels quickly, easily, and accurately. So let's get started then. So we're now live, and this is BarTender Designer, and here we can see the label that I actually had some screenshots of. Now, this is for Waldorf and Sons. Now, Waldorf and Sons is a company we've come up with, and if you were on yesterday's webinar, you saw how Roberto showed Waldorf and Sons was using BarTender to create some simple mailing labels. Well, Waldorf and Sons has been really successful in no small part to the savings they got from the being able to take advantage of the USPS discount for having all of those that USPS intelligent barcode at the bottom of the label. They've also started a new division, and that's their beauty products, and they call it Mist. So that's their one of their brands. And they came up with a way of allowing for custom shampoo blends, where a customer can pick from different things and get the shampoo they want and have it, name it, give it their own name, and put their own moniker on it. So it can be for a salon, as you see in the example here, or it could be just for an individual. And they used BarTender's intelligent templates to make this happen. And so we're going to go through some of the processes here. So if you've used BarTender, you're probably very familiar with this toolbox right here. It shows you some data, the named data sources, all of the things that make up the label, as each one of these is an object. But one of the things about an object is you actually have control over that object, and you can decide when it's going to print. So this particular object here, which is the customer name, if I wanted to, I could actually come to the title point here and notice I've got an option. It says print when. Well, right now that is set to always. I could actually change that, and pop-up went off the screen, to I could say never print it only when the customer name is, say, not empty. Or I could actually build a very complex series of choices here and continue to move on. But you see how everything is just click or enter. So BarTender would go and build this for you based on what you've decided are the conditions under which something should print. We're going to turn this back to always though. But we do that not just for those objects. We can do it for entire collections of objects that we group together in what we call layers. Now, if you do anything with like Photoshop or some other kind of graphics program, you've probably come across the idea of layers. Layers are a collection of objects that are grouped together and can be turned on or turned off, placed above or below other objects on your document according to the rules you decide. So in this case, if I notice I've got kind of like an eye here. If the eye is open, we're seeing it. If I close this eye, that blue background went away. So all of this information is at my layer 1. This is just the kind of, all right, important but boring text, and there's my logo. That's where I put the name of the shampoo. Here's my barcode. But what gives a label its pop oftentimes is the color. Now you saw that with blue. I could also have it with green, or we could go to a gray, and so on. So which one do we want to use, and how does BarTender know when to print this? Well, you remember that property about print when? Well, BarTender has that for layers as well. So here I'm on a brown one, and notice print when the name data source of label color is equal to mist_brown background. That's the only time this will print. So what does that mean? Well, just using the different colored backgrounds, that means I have one template and I can actually represent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different labels. I don't have to have 5 templates, one for each color. I can have one template and let the data tell BarTender which color needs to be applied. This is really pretty cool. Now, how do we get that information in there? Well, if you're using Starter, the way you would do it is you would have to kind of double click on this and open up the properties. Actually, I'm on the wrong one. There we go. Open up the properties and you'd come down here and you'd say, okay, I need to hand change this. One of the advantages of Professional is we can create data entry forms. And here we go. This is the data entry form for that label. Notice I even have a preview available. I've been able to import my logo, the fact that this is American made, and all of the named data sources here I've tied to some type of data input box. And I have a range of different ways that I can make choices or input information or trigger different things to happen. And most of these I'm using right here are text input boxes. Although I'm also going to use, and I'll show you, a list box where I have just preset options that are available. But you know what I'm missing here? I'm missing the name. I have the G10, which is what gives me the barcode, the kind of barcode I need. I have the product name, I have the lot number, I have all of those things, but I don't have any place for the name. If you've used BarTender, I think you know what's coming. This is how easy it is to create and link the data entry form to a named data source so you can affect your label. I'm going to come here to this box. I'm going to come down. I'm going to say, you know what? I want to hand type that in. So that's a text input. I click. I'll just move it into place. I'll go, you know, I want this actually to be kind of lined out to here. Let's go ahead and change that label there to customer name. There we go. Cool. That works. Am I done? Let me tweak that just a touch more. Not quite, because if I were to try and do a print preview right now, BarTender's going to give me a warning. And there we go. Text input box 1 is not linked to a data source. Yeah, I created that box, this box, but I didn't link it. How hard can that be? Well, it can be this hard. So now when I go to a print preview, and of course it pops it up off the screen, there we go. So now notice this preview is actually live and I can start to enter information in here. So this could be shampoo for my naturally beautiful hair. And that's going to be for Naturally Beautiful Hair Salon. So notice by changing the I changed the G10 and up popped my UPC. My product name is Staying Gorgeous Naturally.
Lee, I'm loving this.
Okay. And now lot number, well, we're just going to make up something here. There we go. Just kind of, you know, I've got some odd numbers in there. My label color, I'm going to go with, well, Carolyn, what color should I go with?
Purple.
Purple. There we go. So I've got my purple, and what color logo?
Oh, let's give it a red one.
I
Is
don't
that
have
a
red.
choice? Okay, let's do black.
Black. Okay. Now, if I wanted red, I would simply have to have a version of that logo in red and then add it as an option here and make sure that the form knew where to get it. And that's it. Then all I would have to do is select red, just like here. So, okay, Carolyn, if this is for you, why don't you go ahead and tell me what shampoos have to have an oil in them. So what kind of oil?
Let's do unscentedly.
Okay. And you can have up to 4 scented ingredients go into it.
Tea tree.
Tea tree. What
Um,
else?
let's just keep it simple. Apple.
Okay.
I think Carolyn is trying to get a shampoo.
If it's gonna show up in the mail, vanilla.
Yeah, vanilla.
Vanilla. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Now you can stop there. You can keep going. It doesn't matter.
Now let's stop. Let's stop.
Okay. And we're going to have a QR code here. And so it could be Mist Beauty.
And PS, I use that all the time in marketing to create QR codes. This is fantastic.
Yeah, this is really great. And I could also put in here, maybe I want to link to that lot number. And actually, I'm going to come up here and I'll grab this because maybe I have that lot number as a particular page so the customer can see what's, you know, more information about it, something like that. So I could do that. And now I also have my preview of what my label is going to look like. And if we go ahead and there we go. So there you go, Carolyn. I'll throw that together. I think I got a spare bottle somewhere.
Thanks,
And
Lee.
shake well before using though.
Okay. And notice the QR code.
And then notice the QR code. So that's how with one label, you could create 5 different basic labels, but when you add in the fact that each one of these is bespoke or customized, in reality, you have an almost infinite number of labels that could be produced based off of just one template. And that's the power of intelligent templates. Now, showing you how this can be done using manual entry. Let's take a look at what happens when, gosh, this is very successful. Waldorf and Sons Mist Beauty Products is a hit. And all of the salons and people are wanting their own custom blends. In fact, orders are coming in so fast, even hand typing them in using the data entry form is not fast enough nor accurate enough because they, people still make typos. What can they do next? Well, that's when they go back and they upgrade from professional to automation. Because with automation, they get our integration builder. And as I talked about earlier, integration builder has the ability to accept information from an outside source, slice and dice it, and then send it to the appropriate document to be printed at the printer that is designated. Now let's just walk through this really quick because it is really pretty simple. If I wanted to create a new integration, I could just come here and say, hey, I want to do a new integration, and boom. I could say, hey, I'm getting my input from a serial connection with a barcode scanner, or I want this only to run at a certain time, or I'm monitoring a database and when I see a new record entered, I want to run it. Or as we're doing in this one, it's a web service. So when I select web service, I get to name it. And in this case, Mist Shampoo Integration Web Service. And I've got choices on when does the integration take place. I could decide how many times it could run. In this case, since I don't have it checked, it'll just keep running. and a lot of other things that most of the time you don't have to deal with, but sometimes if you're in a high security network or you have some very specific needs, you've got a lot more opportunities and control here. As I said, BarTender is not really a program. It's a workbench and a set of tools. You build what you need to fit your operations. You don't have to change your operations to fit BarTender. So really quick, here we get a little more information. It'll default to a service name for the URL and a particular path, but I can change those. The input data, I can actually tell it, hey, I know this data is going to come in CSV or maybe as JSON or maybe XML, but believe it or not, leaving it unstructured is one of the most popular ways of doing it, because then you can tell BarTender to kind of figure it out. It really comes in handy sometimes. And then here I can actually do some different kinds of responses. And that's what's you're gonna see feeding down over here. And remember I talked about that feedback loop? This is where that happens and why. And then finally, if I'm doing something really specialized, I not only have all of my usual system variables that I can access, I can create some. So I can do some really specialized stuff. But again, 95 times out of 100, you're just going to leave that be. So let's think about what's happening here. Now, this application here, Insomnia, is what's called a REST agent or test tool. And it's going to pretend to be my, say, website where customers are able to enter an order. And we don't make this. This is there is a free version available. Just search for Insomnia and REST, all caps REST, and you can find it. There are a lot of others out there. It's really useful for doing testing. Here I have the information that BarTender is going to be sent. Now notice the first line is basically just the name of a bunch of different columns. This might start feeling a little bit like Excel, and that's because Excel does follow some of the same model. This is what we call a CSV file, or a comma separated value file. And it's called that because guess what? We separate the values with a comma. This first line is going to be what each of those value fields is going to be called. So it's name. The subsequent lines are different records. So the order number, there's my order number for the first record. There's the customer number. There's the name of the customer and the G10 and so on down. Notice I have here what my ingredients are. Okay. I also have what kind of label color, what the lot number is. All of the information that I was entering by hand is in this data stream. And I have 3 of them because I had 3 orders come in that I'm now ready to process. So what we're going to see is Insomnia pushing that information to BarTender through the integration builder. In this screen, we'll see what BarTender tells it about those the data it's received. And then over here, I have my print queue, and we'll see those labels start to appear here in the print queue. And then I'll show you how with Reprint Console, we can actually take a look and see what was actually printed. So let's go on down through the integration again. So the web services part is up here. Once that information's entered BarTender, I can do different actions. Now this action I have is called transform text to record. The truth is I have a lot of different actions that I can use. And they're all labeled pretty basically for each database. A for loop, run the actions by incrementing or decrementing a variable. So all pretty straightforward explanations. You don't have to be a programmer to use this. But if you are a programmer, you're going to really appreciate all of the flexibility BarTender actions give you. So in this case, we have the data's come in. Because BarTender doesn't know what it is, I'm saying, okay, let's transform that text to a record set. And there I'm simply going to say, use this particular CSV file as your sample, and then take that data and parse it out so it follows the format that you found here. And that's going to break it down into 3 records. Then we say, okay, next action for every record. Now, if you notice, there's not a lot going on here. I could add some stuff here that some people do if they're doing very complex ones, but again, the majority of the time you leave this screen alone. Notice this print document action though. And the first thing I want you to notice is see how this is not lined up here, but is kind of inset? That means this print document action is under the control of this action for each database record. So BarTender will come in, grab the first database, and it will then execute any of the actions for that record that are indented like this print document. And then it'll cycle back up and take the next record and so on through. So we've created a little loop here that will last as long as there are records. Now in the print document, this is where I'm going to tell it, hey, go get this label. I want you to send it to this printer. And I notice I got these funny things here: percentage sign, customer name, percentage sign, dash, percentage sign, product name, percentage sign. Percentage signs in Integration Builder designate a variable. Remember the variables here? Well, those aren't the only variables I have. I also have the variables that happen to be the names of the fields of the data source. So that data table came in. Remember I showed you the customer name right here? Well, this is a variable that lets me get whatever the value is for that customer, for that record, for customer name, which first one is Lauren Bridges, and it's going to put it here. Remember those named data sources in the label template? I'm mapping them. I'm saying, hey, the name data source customer underscore name, take whatever is in the variable from the table of customer name and put it there, and so on down. Now, it doesn't have to be variables. So product instruction title, that's never going to change. Leave that the right way to wash your hair. Same with product instructions. And here I have a web page or information already built to do the QR code. So by doing it this way, I'm able to decide and map the information that was here to what's going to go on the label. And then it'll simply cycle and go to the next one. So let's see how that works. Now, we have a testability here with BarTender Integration Builder, and I'm just going to go ahead and start the label or start the integration, and notice it's saying, okay, I'm waiting for an event. And over here, I'm going to come to Insomnia, and this is my web page, and it's just gone ahead and sent it. Okay, you can see the messages spooling here. It's processed the first one, and there's the first document. Oops, the second one just came in. It's a little quick for me. And there comes the third one, should be right there. So it's processed all 3 records. We can see that it sent information back to the web page, so the web page could relay an update. Say the customer saying, oh, your order's been received and is being processed, etc. And now it's simply waiting for events again. If I send things again, it'll simply cycle through it again. So when you deploy an integration, it's sitting there waiting for its trigger to come, and then it'll automatically process and generate. Now notice one of the reasons I went ahead and did on the print options, I said, hey, use the customer name and the product name. That became the name of my print jobs. I could also add in, say, a customer order number, or the product G10 gives you a really great way of being able to look and know what a job was. Now, how do we know what actually got printed? That's where Reprint Console is really great. So I'm going to tell it to refresh, and here we can see all of the jobs. This is the oldest one, so it's going to be the one here, Lauren Bridges. Here we go, Lauren Bridges, all of the different choices that it had, and it was a blue background. Then we have Best Natural Stores. That's going to pop up here in a moment. There we go. Best Natural Stores with the brown, etc. Let's say the printer ran out of labels and I need to reprint the label. Do I need to have Insomnia send it to me again? No. I can simply come in here and notice I've got reprint label capability. So I would have to have the right access. So not just anyone can do this, but I can come in and say, hey, I want to do a reprint and reprint the printed object. I can also come in here and I can look and I can see just what the data is for that particular label. So Reprint Console is a really powerful tool. So we've now gone through it. We have actually printed out 6 different labels, well, 3 labels twice each, actually, because I cycled the same data through. But that's how easy it is. If I was ready, if I went, okay, my test was good, I can come back here, I'll stop it. I am now ready to deploy it. And I would now simply say, okay, I want to deploy this as a production, and I would click on this, and it would automatically be sent to our administration console, which would then place it on the server I would designate, and it's ready to go to work. So that's pretty much the demo. Let me go back to presentation. I always mess this part up, guys, sorry. Okay, so please enter any questions you had on this. I would love to answer them. Just a quick refresh on the additions that I've talked about here. Automation has Integration Builder. It has another tool like Integration Builder called Process Builder that's for some more advanced things. You also, if you are a programmer or you have a strong DevOps team, you can actually code directly to BarTender and integrate it so deep in your background that nobody else knows it's there, but it's chugging away doing the work for you. Likewise, the monitoring and print console, History Explorer, etc., they're there, but they're limited to just 7 days of data. Enterprise has everything automation has, plus librarian that I talked about, and the document workflow, centralized management, print portal, and an unlimited history that you can use for both tracking and controlling your operations. A nice little slide that shows you some of the differences. So if you see, if you're with Starter, you have BarTender Designer in the administration console, but what you don't have in Designer is the data entry forms, and you're going to be limited to just CSV or Excel. You're not going to be able to work with others. You go to Professional, and that goes up. You're able to access almost any kind of data. We have over 20 different database connectors. So if you're using QuickBooks, if you're using Excel Online, if you're using Microsoft SQL, you want to use Professional. Some of the resources we have available, we have an incredibly rich support portal. We have tutorial videos, we have technical guides, we have community forums. All of them are free. You can go in there and learn and how to do BarTender in all kinds of circumstances. The easiest thing to do is you just come in and you type in this section here, some of your keywords, and you're going to see a huge number of support options become available for you. We support during business hours as standard, and we also have a premium option available. If you are running 7x24, then you probably would like to have your support 7x24. And so we have premium support available. And oops, I went the wrong way. Okay, if when you buy BarTender, you get 1 year of maintenance. You want to keep that maintenance going because that's what gets you the free updates. We're in BarTender 2021. Guess what? Next year, there's probably going to be a BarTender 2022. If you buy BarTender now, you're on maintenance. When BarTender 2022 comes out, you'll get it free. Likewise, easy to upgrade, and you have access to our live support, so you can actually call in and talk to a technical support person about your challenge. And then finally, you want to sign up and get a portal account. We can keep you updated and informed on all different kinds of things revolving around BarTender that way. And I said finally, but I said that was actually penultimate. The ultimate thing is if it's still you want a little more help, a little more hand-holding, we have our professional services group. We can help you get up and going. We can help you design the labels. We can advise you. We can train the trainer. All of it's through our professional services group. So that's about it. And Roberto, do we have some really tough, hard questions? I'm ready.
Hey Lee, good job. Good job in today's webinar. We do have a couple of questions. The first one they're asking is, does BarTender offer any failover backup solution? And I know you mentioned it, but it wouldn't hurt to show them the admin console and tell them that.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so let me pull up my admin console here. So we do have redundancy options and backup options. Now, first, let's talk about the redundancy. We have a couple of different ways that you can employ redundancy with BarTender. It is an enterprise feature. So I happen to be running enterprise here, and if I come in under licensing, you'll see that I have a redundancy option, and I don't have it enabled, but we have a wizard that walks you through, and we have two different kinds of redundancy: a backup, which is a one-to-one, and then a triad. And we actually have a webinar on redundancy, I believe, that would be a good place if you wanted to go more into detail. Or you can ask and through your BarTender partner about it, and they can contact myself or their BarTender regional sales manager, and we'll be happy to go into that scenario for you. Now, the other thing that you mentioned, Roberto, was backing up.
Yes, a backup. But I think that, yeah, that was looking for a redundancy or a backup solution.
See, because one of the other ways that there are backups is, and especially at the enterprise level, there is that system database I talked about, and librarian is inside of the system database. So if you have enterprise and you keep your templates inside of librarian, then you can have automated backups, because we've taken a lot of the stress of backing up that database out and have just come up with some standard automations, including where to archive deleted records, but also how to do different backups. So you can save to a backup, you can schedule different kinds of maintenance, you can do a host of different things and have that all set up automatically.
Greatly. I have another question, a totally different question. Is from Rahim. And his question is, how does a folder monitor set up, and what version has this? So it would be with any of our editions. You have to have automation to have access to Integration Builder. But if you want to address a little bit more of the folder monitoring setup aspect, Lee, that'd be great to
Sure.
show him.
So what we'll do is we'll actually come here and I'll say, hey, I want to do another integration, and that's a file. And I'll go ahead and start this. So here we have the file, and notice detection option. It just asks me, where do I want to be watching? Where is BarTender pointed at? Now, I don't like the fact that it automatically defaults to my OneDrive. Maybe I have it here, let's see, under demo trigger folder. This is one I tend to use. So now when I would be finished with this, BarTender would be monitoring this folder, looking for a file, and I can tell it what kind of file to look for. The default is something that ends in .dat for data. I could make that .txt or CSV. I could make that it's got to begin with 2021 and then anything. And then I'm also able to control how frequently it looks there, as well as some of the other things. I also have the ability, once it's gotten the file, do I want to do something after that? Maybe I want to rename the extension so I know that it's been worked on. If for some reason the file failed, maybe I wanted to make it a .failed. These are all different choices that you can make. So you can replace a file, you can add a timestamp, you can give it a serial number, but that's how it is able to monitor. Once it's gotten to that point, so it's through here, then all of the rest of it that I talked about before is still valid. It's still going to process the same way with actions, etc.
Thank you, Lee. I hope that answered the question, Raheem. I have another question, Lee, here. And if you scroll up a bit, always in the file detection folder, is that folder, are we able to specify the tree that we're going to search in a variable inside of percentage signs? Could that be sent in the payload data?
Well, in principle, it could, but if you think about it, it wouldn't work because BarTender first has to know what folder to be monitoring for it to get the folder, for it to get the file that would have the data that would tell it what folder.
No, it'll be complicated because the integration is actually, you have to let it know what folder it has. It has to go first to begin with.
Yes.
And then the payload data would have the path, but that would not apply for the detection options.
Right. So if you want to say, hey, go look in C:/demo/trigger folder, and and that was the variable, and you put that in your data file, then when the data file dropped in the trigger folder, well, BarTender doesn't know to look there yet.
No, it doesn't. It just doesn't know.
Right. So we're getting the cart before the horse in that kind of scenario. That's one of the reasons why, for example, web service tends to work so well is just a URL, and you say, hey, you just go ping this. Now, I could think of ways that you could affect something like that if you wanted to, but the easiest thing is just to go ahead and say, hey, I'm going to have a trigger folder, and that's what this integration is going to look at.
Define it, right?
Yep.
Then I think we have time for one more question, and it's from Connie, and says, great webinar. It was a great webinar. Hope you liked it, Connie. Can you please show how to password protect the label template and integrations so that only certain users can modify them once workflow has been approved?
Okay, so if we're talking workflows, the way we would work with that, let me think for a moment here.
I was thinking for her question, it would be more of the workflow establishes who is the one that's going to design, who is the one that's going to be in production and all that. But you could actually password protect the label from designer.
Yeah, there's actually three
multiple
levels.
Ways. Yeah, multiple ways of doing it too, right?
Right. Well, there's actually 3 different levels of security that you can apply. Let me run through them really quick. So you can first have security applied directly on the document. Advantage, locks it in wherever that document goes. that password protection is there. And there are two places you can do this. You can go to File, and you go to BarTender document, not options, I missed. It's the one below it. It actually says BarTender document password. And here you can enter a password, and for people to get to a protected action, they have to know that password. So maybe you go, you know what? If they open it up, I'll let anybody print it, but I'm not going to let them mess around with the rest of it unless they know the password. So that's one option.
Before you continue, keep thing here, everybody. Once you put a password on that label, it is encrypted, and you lose that password, there is no access to that label.
Very,
Support is not going to be able to help you out, and you need to make sure that you have a backup of that password, or you are not. I've spoken with customers that are not coming back from that. They will have to recreate the whole label from scratch because it is
very,
encrypted.
very, very true. There is another level that you can also do in here, and that is, let's see, I was doing this just recently. System information register. You know what? I'll have to send you a screenshot. I've got it in another thing, but I'm forgetting right off the top where that option was. But there is an option on here for being able to set a print only login. So those are the ways. And as Roberto said, the advantage is, hey, it goes along with the document. The disadvantage, if you ever forget it, yeah, it's encrypted. We can't help you with it. So then there are two other levels that you can go to. If you are at professional level or higher, then you've got the administration console, and you're able to implement security. Now I have security implemented for mine, and once this is done, I can control user permissions. So I can, if I wanted to allow Roberto, say, to have access to my computer or my BarTender system, I could add him this way, and then I could come over here and I could decide what Roberto is able to do or not do. So for example, Roberto would not be able to access my administration console. He would be able to run BarTender and to print documents. Maybe I don't want him though to be able to set document passwords. So I'm able to control either at an individual level or an entire group what people can do inside of BarTender. So this works with Windows Active Directory, so it can be tied in to your overall system and give you control via that method. Another level that you can do, and we talked about that, Roberto, you won't mind if I remove you.
No, at all, not so ever.
There we go. Okay. Another level, oops, I just closed what I was going to show. Another level is the workflows, which you talked about. Now, when we get into workflows, we're also going through the administration console, and that's in the librarian setup. So I'll pick a multi-approval one here. This is really kind of a wild, somewhat typical one. Let me expand this out so you can see the whole thing. And come on, there we go. So each one of these objects, a rectangle or a pentagon, represents a state. And when I go to a state, I actually have permissions. So who is assigned to this? Well, I can restrict that. So here you see it's just me and RFP. I can decide who is able to make decisions about it and what kind that they can make. I can even have emails automatically sent out that notify people that a change has been made. So you can see here, this is a sample one I've got worked up. And you can use all three of these. You could have document level control, you could have system level control, you can have state level control, and somebody would have to pass through all three. So you've got complete control and access over the access and ability, and once they have access, what they can do inside of BarTender at any point that you want. Another reason why Enterprise is really the solution you want when managing your processes become as important as the labels themselves. I know we ran on a little long here, Roberto.
Oh, I think you're good. I think Connie loved that explanation. I hope you did, Connie. Great job, Lee. Amazing webinar. We covered a lot. Super dynamic. But we, like you're saying, it's past 6, so from 9. So yeah, I think it's your time to take it away, Carolyn.
Thanks so much, everybody. I'll send a link to the recording shortly after, a little bit later today, as well as some suggested other things to consider as far as content goes. So thanks again. We're here again next month. You can attend this session as many times as you want and get all your questions answered. Also, don't forget about the professional services offering, that 2-hour quick start. The people on that team have been here for decades, so they can help get you up and running in your specific environment very, very, very quickly. So thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day and stay safe.
Stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.